All right, we're going to get started. Thank you for joining our Fall Title I meeting for the 2021-2022 school year. We have Title I meetings at least 3 times per year, and this is the first one for this school year. The purpose of this meeting is to share some information about our Title I programming and to just talk generally about some of the different initiatives that we have going on at Henry School, and specifically the ways that we use the money that we receive from federal funding for our Title I programming. Let's get started. If you have questions while I'm presenting, you can feel free to drop your question in the chat, but I will most likely look at them towards the end. Ms. Rama, if you could do me a favor and copy and paste the Google form into the chat, that would be greatly appreciated. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is, what is Title I? Title I funding. Well, Title I funding is something that every school in the school district of Philadelphia receives. This is funding that comes from the federal government, and it goes to the state of Pennsylvania. The funds, once they're distributed to the state, are then disseminated to each school district, which is sometimes what we call an LEA. The district, or the school district of Philadelphia, is then responsible for distributing these funds to all of the district schools based on 2 criteria. There is a formula that's used that determines the percentage of what they consider to be low income status students who attend the school. Additionally, schools across the city and across our state have different designations connected to Title I. I'm going to be talking about that in some upcoming slides. Each spring, or the end of winter, entering into spring, at Henry School, we go through the budgeting process for the upcoming school year. This is a time where we decide how to best use the funding that we receive from the federal government, as well as more generalized funding, which is what we call our operational funding. We take the feedback of many stakeholders into consideration when we make these decisions, and we conduct annually a needs assessment. We get input from members of the leadership team, the parent and family community, and definitely members of our local school community. So each spring, when it comes time to work on our budget for the upcoming school year, we always need the help of members of our school community. We have a document that is called our Parent and Family Engagement Policy. It lives on our school's website, and it can also be found publicly. I'm going to talk about that in an upcoming slide. Additionally, we have a document that we call our School Parent Compact. Our School Parent Compact outlines the ways that we pledge annually to work with families and different stakeholders. It outlines the responsibilities that we have as a school, the responsibilities specifically of our teachers, the responsibilities that we hope families will carry as they partner with us, and additionally, the responsibilities of students as a really important stakeholder in our school community as well. There is a plan that is developed each year. And this year, our plan is in alignment with the School District of Philadelphia's goals and guardrails. If you're not on mute, can you just take the opportunity to make sure that you're muted? Thank you. I'm going to share the link to our school's plan with you all before we leave tonight, before we sign off tonight. And this is a document that we worked on in the spring of 2021. Each year, families absolutely support us in letting us know what do they feel like the priorities are for our annual budget. So we're going to jump a little bit more deeply into the School District of Philadelphia's Parent and Family Engagement Policy. This is the document that I always share school-wide. So it is not currently, but will be uploaded to our school's website. It's also a document that I send out on email and on our school messaging system of Remind. It's a living document that is worked on and revised each year with the input of parents. It outlines the ways that we engage with you all, and that lets you know some of the events and different types of offerings that you can expect. For example, Back to School Night is something that we do each year and is something that is memorialized in our Parent and Family Engagement Policy. One thing that we do a lot of here at Henry School is seeking the feedback from different stakeholders. So if you ever have suggestions, constructive criticism, ideas for ways that we can improve, you can always contact me directly. Many families reach out via Remind or send me an email, but also there are offices in the School District of Philadelphia that liaise specifically with families. So sometimes you might hear us talk about the FACE office, which stands for Family and Community Engagement. And we have an individual whose title is the Family Engagement Liaison. This is the person who specifically can sort of be a third party if you ever feel like you have questions that you don't know the answer to, or a concern that you'd like some support working through. The FACE office it exists to support families specifically, and that is their phone number there at the bottom of the screen. So our parent and family engagement policy is a document, roughly 5 pages or so, which I talked about this a little bit, but it talks about the ways that at Henry School, we involve parents in the process of reviewing our school plan, as well as talks about the ways that we support parents, any needs that parents think that they have at home. We always ask for input or recommendations, for example, on sessions that we could run for parent meetings or parent training sessions. And it's really important to us that we're always asking parents, like, what is working well for you, or what areas do you feel like you need some more support? So some examples of things that we've done in the past with the support of our PTA and our school advisory council, we've had sessions where we've talked about best practices for monitoring your child's social media accounts, or we've talked about, I'm just thinking through the pandemic, ways to support your child in using the internet in a way that is safe. So these are all workshops that were put on because parents asked for them. And so if you have ideas about things that you think would be really helpful at the school level for us to provide a little bit more guidance, or even just to create a space where we can have a conversation as a school community, absolutely feel free to reach out and know that your input is valued. More specifically, our school parent compact has the goals and responsibilities as a school that we have, making sure that we're providing a quality education for all students. It's also important and outlined in our parent and school compact, the ways that we identify students who are in need of more support. Students who might be struggling academically, but not only academically, students who might struggle coming to school every day and maintaining good attendance, or students who are struggling with social or emotional needs. And as I said already, the compact states the responsibilities that parents and students also have in helping to make sure that we meet the goals that are outlined in the plan that we submit to the Pennsylvania Department of Education annually. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, each school in the school district of Philadelphia has what we call a Title I designation. This designation is based on a school's performance, right? So there are 4 different categories currently that a school could be designated as. We have an acronym for everything. So the first one is called CSI, which stands for Comprehensive Support and Improvement. That would be a school whose performance is really struggling and they're identified as needing additional help. The next level would be a school that's called TSI, which is Targeted Support and Improvement. That's a school that's also struggling, but not so much as a CSI school. ATSI is the third designation, which is additional support that's provided to schools through federal funding. But CW Henry is what we call a non-designated school. The reason that we have that label is because our achievement levels on the standardized exams are not such that we receive additional funding or a designation of higher concern. So now I'm going to pivot a little bit to talk about our school-wide plan, and I will provide you with a link to CW Henry's plan for the 21-22 school year and show you how you can access it on our school's website. So what is the school-wide plan? It's a roadmap to academic success. Our plan and the plan of all other schools in the school district of Philadelphia are aligned to the board's goals and guardrails. When we formulate the plan each year, we take into consideration our current data. We look at data across the whole school, beginning with kindergarten all the way up until 8th grade. And then we think about, where do we need to go? Right? When we determine what our ending point is, we do some backwards mapping and we set our goals. And then the most important part of it is how we're going to get there. right? So what we do is we incrementally plan. We set short-term goals that by June 2022, if we are successful in completing all of these steps, we believe that we will meet our goals. These plans are living and breathing documents. So there is an office in the school district of Philadelphia. We call it the PISO office because we have an acronym for everything, but it stands for Planning and Evidence-Based Supports. So what we do about every 2 to 3 months is that I meet with a representative from the PISO office who checks in on our goals, checks in on the steps that we said that we were going to take to make sure that we're holding up our end of things, and we will do everything that we set out to do. If we find that maybe our goals were a little bit off base or not what we needed to focus on, we continue to revise throughout the year. So where does this information live? It all lives on our school's website. So I'm going to just pop this into the chat. That first link that I just popped into the chat takes you to a page on the Henry website specifically about Title I. I believe that the second link is on that page, but I will just put it right here in the chat. And this takes you to our school plan. It's a Google spreadsheet, so the formatting might look a little bit wonky, but you can go through the different pages of it to see the data that we take into consideration and the goals that we have set. Again, you don't have to look in the chat right now because the plan does live on the CW Henry website. This plan was finalized, it was drafted in the spring, finalized over the summer, and at this point, we are moving forward with the goals that are outlined in our plan. The goal setting process is something that we do each year. It usually starts around March. All right, so we're going to zoom a little bit more into Title I funding. So this slide is about our budget and the requirements that we follow as we are spending our Title I dollars. So Title I funding is a separate budget line for every school in the school district of Philadelphia. It is pretty highly regulated money. You can't spend Title I funding on anything that you'd like to. Anything that is bought using Title I money must supplement and support the core academic programming that we have at our school. Additionally, anything that we're using Title I funding for must be aligned to our school-wide plan. In our different Title I meetings, we seek parent feedback and we create a discussion around the best ways to use these funds in our school. Ooh, there's a typo in this slide, which is the next bullet point, but I'm gonna talk about it. So each year in our annual budget, we have a budget line set aside for what's called parent and family engagement. So last year, we had $2,500, that's a typo, but that's what we had last year. I'm glad to share that this year we have more money set aside for the parent and family engagement budget line. So historically at Henry, I've engaged in a conversation with members of our school advisory council to make decisions about the best way to spend this funding. You can't buy anything with it, but the purpose of the money is to make purchases that will increase the involvement of parents and families in our school. So typically during SAC meetings, we invite people to be a part of this conversation. We haven't started to talk about it this year. It's going to be coming up in upcoming months, but parents are absolutely valued in this discussion, and we take into consideration their feedback about the best ways to spend this money. So this year, in our Title I budget, CW Henry School receives $187,839 in federally funded Title I money. I'm very glad to be able to share that this was an increase from what we received in the 2021 school year, over $30,000 more, which is awesome. Most of this money is spent on staffing. So of the roughly $188,000, $183,000 of it is spent on staff positions. So this year, because we received a little bit more money, we were able to purchase a full-time school-based teacher leader. That person is Miss Karen Rama. She's actually logged on with us right now, which is awesome. But this hasn't been a position that we've been able to afford in our budget historically. Additionally, this money also funds what we call an SSA, or a school-wide support assistant. This is a part-time position of an individual who helps out in the main office, works in our lunchroom, and also works in classes. There are two positions that are very, very important to making sure things run smoothly at Henry School. In addition to the money that we spend on staffing, we also have money that we use to purchase what we call non-full-time purchases. So it's roughly $4,000, a little bit more. That includes the parental involvement money. So that I said last year we had $2,500 for that. This year we have almost $3,000. So $2,954 that I will be talking with members of our parent community to seek some input around what do they think would be most useful to use this money for. And finally, we do each year pledge money towards a program that is called Writers Matter. This is a partnership that we have with an individual who used to work for LaSalle University, but now has branched off with his own independent organization. And it's a really phenomenal program that supports teachers in teaching writing in a more meaningful way. It's a program that roughly 10 teachers at Henry School participate in, and the funding set aside in Title I pays them to participate in professional development. So we have a number of parent and family engagement activities planned throughout the school year. For this year, we've pivoted to hold many of those virtually, such as back to school night, but we haven't canceled any. We're still having them. So that includes our PTA meetings, or our Parent and Teacher Association, as well as our SAC meetings. SAC stands for School Advisory Council. These are open meetings that happen roughly once a month. And the PTA has already met at least once this year, and our SAC is still waiting to have our first meeting. Additionally, we have a fall, winter, and spring Title I meeting where we talk about the Title I budget. We will have workshops. When we are able to have volunteers working in our schools, we host events where volunteers can participate in an orientation, make sure that all of the paperwork and the clearances are completed. And then this has become very important during the pandemic, but making sure that we're providing trainings on how families can use the Parent and Family Portal. That is the online portal where parents can log on to see your child's grade book. You can communicate with your child's teacher, and you can see their attendance record, everything. It's a really important place to know how to access. And then this is still to be determined because it's based on COVID and visitor protocols. But one thing that we love to do at Henry is hold school-wide events. So pre-pandemic, we would have a very robust musical each year. We hold assemblies and different events where there's lots of joy and fun. Because of COVID and safety protocols, we are not bringing large groups of people together in enclosed spaces, but once it becomes safe to do so, that's absolutely something that we will bring back. And I'm just very, very proud of the level of parental involvement at Henry because it's truly spectacular. And it's really a wonderful component of our school. Additionally, one thing that is you can always depend on as a parent whose child attends a school that receives Title I funding is that you will always know about the qualifications. You have a right to know about the qualifications of your child's teachers and any other professionals who work with them. So in any circumstance where we have a teacher who may not be appropriately state certified, that hasn't happened to us in a couple years, but if that is the case, you would receive a letter from me informing you of such. Additionally, in order to work at our school, all paraprofessionals must be appropriately state certified. A paraprofessional, if you're not familiar, is an individual who normally works either on the classroom level or an individual level with students or a student who has an IEP. So in order to be in that job, they must have completed 2 years of higher ed study, or they have to have an associate's degree, or they have to pass a formal assessment, which is a requirement of the certification. So right to know qualifications. This means that you have the right to request the qualifications of your child's teacher and or any instructional paraprofessionals that work with your child. In order to request these qualifications, you don't have to go to 440 North Broad Street. You could if you wanted to, but you could just make an appointment with me. You reach out to me via email, via Remind, or you can call the school and my secretary will give me your message, and we would set up a time to meet. We're always very transparent about this type of information. Again, since I've been the principal at Henry, I'm going into my 4th school year at Henry. We haven't been in this situation, but if there was ever a circumstance where your child was taught for 4 or more consecutive weeks by a teacher who was not appropriately certified, you would receive notification in writing, and that is your right as a parent. Schools that are in this situation, it's usually because they have a long-term sub, but that is not the situation we're in at Henry School. I did talk already a little bit about Title I school designations, but if you're joining us a little bit late, please know that in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, all schools are given a designation. There are some acronyms that's used, and schools receive these designations based on their school's performance measures. We do use the PSSA, or the Commonwealth uses the PSSA as the measure currently to determine whether or not a school receives this designation. As I said earlier, Henry is a non-designated school. And I'm going to just put in the chat a link to the PA Future Ready Index, which is where you can go if you want to learn more about these designations or see the different categories that we're rated. All right, so this slide is about nobody's favorite topic of state assessments and our academic standards, right? But so our state assessment is the PSSA. We take the PSSA, students take the PSSA in English language arts as well as math. It begins in grades 3 to 8, and students also take it in science twice when they're in grades 4 and 8. 2 school years ago, the 2020 PSSA was canceled due to school closure. Last year for 2021, the PSSA was offered in a modified sense. That means that only students who were in the school building took the PSSA, and students who were learning virtually from home in grades 3 to 8 did not participate in the PSSA. There has not been information released yet about the 2021 PSSA, but I would assume because students are back in school full time, it will happen this school year. Any information that we get about standardized exams will always be discussed on the school level. It's something that I would talk about in my bi-weekly family forums, and it's something that you could ask your child's teacher about at any time. When we have report card conferences, and I apologize, that's a time from last year, but they're coming up in November for the first marking period. And if we have any information about them at that time, we'll definitely make sure to share it. And then last but not least, I wanted to share a little bit of information about the curriculum that we use at Henry School. I hope you heard about it earlier from your child's teachers, but there are some important things to note. So we have a number of different curricular programs that the School District of Philadelphia purchases for all teachers in the district. We have a program that's called Pearson for English language arts for our K-5 classrooms. In our K-3 classrooms, we have a phonics program that is called Saxon Phonics. Our oldest students in grades 6, 7, and 8 use an English language arts program that is called StudySync. And then for math, they're using a program that's called Envision. Across the entire school, K-8, we have a social emotional learning program that's called Second Step. That's actually a program that I purchased out of our school-wide budget. It doesn't come from the district. And then last but not least, we have a blended learning program or a computer-based intervention program that's called iReady. It has not yet been rolled out this school year, but we do have an iReady subscription for reading and math for all students. One thing that's different this school year that's important to know is that there are some shifts coming from the School District of Philadelphia around curriculum. So for our kindergarten, first, second, and third grade teachers, the district has pre-written lesson plans and developed a scope and sequence for literacy. So that's reading and writing. And then on the other end of things, our 4th to 8th grade teachers are using a pre-written curriculum for math. So that's not to say that they're not using the programs that you see listed above in white. They just have a little bit more guidance coming from the School District of Philadelphia. It's the first time that the district has done this on a larger scale. So it's definitely something that's being edited and revised, but it's something new for this year. All right, so last but not least, I've said this a couple times throughout the presentation, but the reason why our school is so successful is because we really do rely upon the collaboration from parents, family members, and other stakeholders. So if you have the opportunity to ever come to our main office, all of the information about the Title I programming that we do currently and that we've done in previous years is publicly available in our school's main office. You can take a look at them. Sometimes the binders might not quite be in the main office because we don't have as much display space. But if you're interested in learning more about our Title I programming, feel free to schedule an appointment or to ask when you stop by. We rely and we really value the ways that parents at Henry School get involved in their child's education. It's been a little bit tricky this year with COVID. We haven't been able to open our physical doors in the way that we've done in years past. But that's not to say that parents aren't valued in this partnership. And we look forward, hopefully across the school year, to being able to welcome you back into the school year, into the building. So what you can expect as the year continues is that around winter break, we'll have a Title I meeting where I'm giving you some updates on the ways that we've spent some of the money in our Title I budget. And we'll continue to talk about different programming and events that are offered as a part of our Title I programming. In March of 2022 and in the spring, we'll have meetings that are going to be much more of a dialogue where it's more of a question and answer, asking parents, what's going really well for you? And what are some areas that you think our school could improve in? But that pretty much brings us to the end of the night tonight. It's 6:59. I think this is my last slide, so I'm going to stop sharing. I can hang around for a couple minutes if parents have any questions about our Title I programming, but otherwise I hope that everybody had a wonderful, wonderful virtual back to school night. If you didn't have the opportunity to do so already, please make sure that you submit the attendance document that's in the chat. And thank you. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm curious to know, is through the portal the only way that you're going to be submitting information to parents for just correspondence to and from school?
No, so I use the portal is an easy way for us to do it. Sometimes I send emails, which I send from my portal, but it should come to your email address. And then additionally, our school-wide remind account is the place where I send quick messages to parents.
So you no longer send home like physical paper copies?
So we will be. We haven't done it so much yet this year. But to be honest, we're trying to move away from that a little bit. It's just because it's very expensive and uses a lot of paper. But there will be times when we do it. We purchased, or I purchased communication folders for all the kids. We're waiting for our final shipment to come in, but traditionally, like, they'd be sent home on Wednesdays. So if we have a paper that needs to be signed and come back to school, we use those folders.
Okay, and so that's just not something that's been rolled out yet.
What grade is your child in?
First grade?
Yeah, you should be getting it really soon. They just came into the building this last week.
Okay.
And so normally in the beginning of the year, there's a number of forms we send home to be signed. We held off on that at this time until we get all of our folders so we can send them to everybody at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like accustomed to like getting paperwork and stuff at the beginning of the year.
That makes sense. For some things, we're going to try to do it electronically because it's a little easier to access, but you'll definitely still be getting folders sent home.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
You as well.
Hey, Petra, nice to see you. All right. Ms. Ram, I hope you had a great night. I'm going to sign off and I'll see you guys all tomorrow.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.